Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, I'm very grateful to have Education Coordinator Emily Mitchell from Victim Service Center of Central Florida. I'm Marianne. I'm an events planner with the Orange County Library System, and tonight we'll be learning about bullying and cyberbullying. The Victim Service Center of Central Florida is here tonight. We're going to be putting all of our links in the chat, and we'll also be displaying those throughout the program. So if you want to check out the Victim Service Center of Central Florida, we'll have all that information for you in the comments and as on the screen as well. So you definitely want to check that out. VSC serves to transform victims' lives and prevent violence in our community. Before I turn it over to Emily, I just wanted to let everyone know that some of today's content will be sensitive in nature, so please keep that in mind. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and I am going to turn it over to Emily. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Marian, for introducing me. I'm really excited to have this discussion with everyone. So like I said, hi there, and please feel free to comment at any time. This is really going to be an interactive discussion. But my name is Emily Mitchell. Like Marianne mentioned, I work for the Victim Service Center of Central Florida, and I'm really glad I can bring this anti-bullying, cyberbullying training online for all of you today. This training is all about how we can be active bystanders to help people in need specifically for bullying. So before I get started, I do want to reiterate once again what Marianne mentioned, which is some of the things that we discussed today can bring up some negative emotions or past memories. And I want to let you all know that the VSC is here 24/7 to help you all. We have that free confidential 24-hour crisis helpline that is available to you all. It is 407-500-HEAL, and I'm sure that there it is in the chat for you as well. That crisis line is 24 hours, so feel free to call it at any time if you're ever feeling overwhelmed. And please take care of yourself as we go through this conversation together. That being said, this is an interactive discussion. I do know that in this world that is more virtual, some people feel more comfortable interacting virtually and some people feel less comfortable interacting virtually. That's completely fine. So feel free to comment at any time. I'm going to be asking some questions. It would be really a nice discussion to have if people interact more. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is all about the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. This is where I work. So if you have not heard of us before, we provide individualized, confidential, free services to anyone who has been a victim of anything, whether that is a sexual assault, a violent crime, or really any kind of traumatic circumstances. So those are the types of populations that we serve. And it's important to know that it doesn't matter when the trauma occurred. It could have happened today. It could have happened years and years ago. We at the Victim Service Center understand that, and we're able to provide services no matter when the trauma occurred. And we do that in a variety of different ways. Through crisis response, therapy, and we have a lot of group workshops as well that we do, and group therapy sessions, and community awareness and education, which is my role at the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. My job is to go out into the community and talk about various topics such as sexual violence, healthy relationships, anti-bullying, of course, stalking, and those kinds of things, in an effort to help normalize these conversations and help stop violence. We essentially, just like Marianne mentioned, want to transform the lives of victims here in our community in Central Florida and prevent violence. It's also important to know that the Victim Service Center is the certified rape crisis center for Orange Seminole, and Osceola County. And we have offices in all 3 of those locations. We also have 2 confidential, which means that the locations are not known, and are protected, forensic exam sites where our licensed sexual assault nurses collect DNA evidence and store that evidence for survivors of sexual violence. So those are some of the many, many services we provide to victims and survivors of trauma. So for example, if there is a survivor of sexual violence, within 5 days or 120 hours of that occurring, they can contact us on our 24/7 helpline, and one of our amazing victim advocates, who is a master's level crisis counselor, will answer that call and meet that victim or survivor of sexual violence at our confidential location. And one of our certified SANE nurses will meet them there as well, and then collect that evidence and store it, even if the survivor doesn't want to report or they're not sure yet. This is a completely free service as well. So those are just some of the many, many things that we do at the VSC. And again, we essentially just want to transform the lives of victims in our community. That being said, today we're going to be talking about bullying, cyberbullying, and ways we can become active bystanders and help prevent or stop bullying when we see it happening. So with that being said, again, this is more of an interactive discussion. I wanted to start off with a first question, which is, what is bullying? What do we know about it? Are there different forms or types of bullying? So what do you think of when you think of the word bullying? How would you define it? And it's completely okay if you're not comfortable like typing in the chat. But once again, if you have a definition of bullying, just type it in. If not, I have one here. So a lot of times when I do this one live, people talk about different aspects of it. Some people say things like, examples of, it could be when you push someone or someone taking advantage of someone else or repetitive stuff. I see that someone said being a jerk. Yeah, that like in general, right? And we can kind of delve deeper into that too. Just kind of being mean for mean's sake, putting someone down, that kind of thing. And really, essentially, what I have here as a definition is bullying is specifically unwanted, aggressive, and repetitive behavior that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. So let's kind of break that down here, right? So there's a few things that I want to highlight. So first of all, it's unwanted. This isn't like friends messing around with each other, right? Absolutely not. No one asks to be bullied. No one wants to be bullied, right? So that's the first thing that's important. Secondly, it's aggressive, whether physically or not, which I'll get more into shortly. So it's aggressive. And another thing that's important to highlight is that it's repeated behavior. It doesn't just happen once and then go away. Bullying happens many, many times, and it seems to be an intention that the person is doing it with a purpose, right? And then the last thing I want to mention is the real or perceived power imbalance. So what do I mean by that? So a real power imbalance could be maybe someone is physically stronger than another person. Maybe they are older or an upperclassman, and the one being bullied is maybe like a freshman or a sophomore or a younger student. A perceived power imbalance means it is how people feel in this situation. For example, maybe the person being bullied feels as though they are not as smart as the bully, that kind of thing. So, and we talked a little bit about it, but there are some different kinds and types of bullying that I want to highlight. Because when we think of bullying, I think a lot of times seeing this picture, we think of it as the physical side of it, right? And that's very real. But there's also different types of bullying. And if we know the different types, then we'll be able to see bullying and understand it and know it when we see it, right? So these different types of bullying are verbal bullying, also social bullying, physical bullying, and then the last one here is cyberbullying that I wanted to mention. So let's go through each of these one by one, right? So verbal bullying. What do you all think of when you think of verbal bullying? Do you have some examples that you want to share? Feel free to comment. So verbal being using your words, right? So what are some examples that you can think of, or other things in mind when you think of verbal bullying? And I'll give you some time. It's okay. I have some examples. I love that. Yeah, so arguing, right? Yeah, so just saying like mean things with someone, that kind of thing. So for example, it could include teasing. It could include name calling too. I love that, Sarah. That's right, mocking too, right? It can also include inappropriate sexual comments as well. It could include taunting too. And it could include threatening as well. So just, it's not a complete list, but these are just some examples so that as active bystanders, we can see it and know that it is bullying when it's happening. But those are also some great examples too. So what about social bullying here? What do you think of when you think of social bullying? And once again, maybe this picture will give you some examples, maybe get you thinking, but what's an example of social bullying? And there might be like a delay in this, so I apologize for that, but I appreciate y'all being so active. I like Sarah's thing. Yeah, you can't sit with us, right? That kind of reminds me of Mean Girls, if anyone's seen that. I also see that Anthony mentioned that I'm cutting out, so I apologize if my internet's a little unstable. But I appreciate y'all being really, what's the word, patient with me. But yes, you can't sit with us, right? So that's a really good point. It's social bullying basically involves, it could be leaving someone out, or maybe spreading lies and rumors. It can include, like you mentioned, Sarah, you can't sit with us, so just excluding someone. And it can also include embarrassing someone in public, right? Yes, it is from Mean Girls. I love that movie. Speaking of Mean Girls, by the way, I also want to acknowledge that although this picture shows girls exclusively, anyone can be the victim of social bullying, and anyone can also bully socially, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, ability, social, sexual orientation, those kinds of things. So that is definitely important to mention as we go through this. And of course, that goes for all types of bullying as well. Yeah, like Among Us. Yes, that's a really fun, popular game. But yeah, it could be that, yeah, the suspecting, leaving someone out, that kind of thing. So that is social bullying. So the other one I want to talk about is, of course, physical bullying. And I think this is the main one that comes to mind when we think of bullying. So what are some examples that you can think of physical bullying? I'll give you some more time just because there could be a delay. While you all are still thinking of some examples, I'll share what we have here. So it could include punching or slapping. It could also include hitting or kicking, putting someone in a locker. That's a really good example, as well as smacking as well, right? It could also include tripping and pushing. It could include stealing or damaging property too. I think a lot of times we think of physical being done just to the person, but it can also include damaging someone's items too, right? And then also pinching and biting. So that is for physical bullying. And the last one I want to talk about is cyberbullying, right? Your icons here of popular apps and such. And of course, we don't have everything listed because it seems like there's a new thing every week. But like TikTok, for example, I should put on here. But what are some examples of bullying that you can all think of using these apps or other internet like cyber memes, right? What do you think of when you think of cyberbullying? Y'all are doing really good with those examples, by the way. You seem to really know your stuff, so good job. While you're all thinking that, some examples could be negative comments or rumors, right? And to kill themselves too. And it could also include hurtful pictures or videos. I also mentioned, we talked about Mean Girls a lot. I want to kind of go back to referencing that movie. So thanks for bringing that up. So basically, a cyberbullying, they have that book of all of those really hurtful pictures. If that was done online, for example, that would be a good example of cyberbullying, right? So with that being said, they're actually pretty similar to other types of bullying, right? But what makes it cyberbullying is that it takes place through social media. I've had people also mention that cyberbullying could also take into account on DMs, for example, or direct messages. It could be on things like Xbox Live. It could be on Steam, those kind of gaming platforms too. That has a lot of cyberbullying as well. And then Sarah also mentioned the word trolling. Absolutely, like harassing people just to harass people. Those are all great examples of cyberbullying. And what I really want to highlight here is it's really important that we talk about cyberbullying, right? Especially right now, and we're in such a digital age. It's so easy to continue and be affected by cyberbullying. So, for example, when we thought of the physical bullying, right? That maybe there was a bully at school, but when you went home, you had your safe space, right? You were able to unwind, right? And you were able to be in your room and kind of just calm down and feel safe there. Of course, it's awful going to school and it's really affecting you. But cyberbullying, we're so connected through social media, through our phones, especially right now. School is mostly online for a lot of people. And so why I think it's really important that we highlight cyberbullying is it can really affect you through your whole life, right? It really comes home with you. It's very easy to get a hold of people. It's really easy to be affected by it, even at home in places where we want to feel safe, right? So that's why I think it's really important that we talk about cyberbullying, especially right now. Another thing is, as we go through this, one of the issues with bullying is that a lot of times people, when they see it, they don't realize that what's happening is bullying. So that's why it's also important that even though it's happening cyber-wise, even though that person isn't right in front of you, it still has lasting effects, and it still really, really can affect people, right? So that's also important to acknowledge. I also like the other example that you brought, which is PS parties too. I didn't even think of that. So yeah, there's a lot of different avenues. As you can see, it's really easy to get someone's attention and bully them through all these different apps, right? That being said, I'm going to share kind of a an example here. And then we're going to just read through it together, and then we're going to decide if it's bullying or not, right? So a teenage girl sent a nude photo of herself to her boyfriend while they were dating. After they broke up, he shared the photo with his friends, who then called her hurtful and mean names through text and social media. So what do you all think? Do you think that this was a type of bullying? Do you think that this was bullying? I'll give you some, like a minute to like think about it, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Give you 30 seconds and I'll drink some coffee. So absolutely, yes, this is definitely a type of bullying, right? I think it's safe to assume that the photo was never meant to be shared, that it was a private, intimate thing just between the two of them, right? And this is an extreme example of a boundary being crossed, and it's really not okay. Also, if the photo is of a minor, I want to point out it's important. This can be considered spreading child pornography, which is extremely illegal and important to mention and acknowledge. And I think we can all imagine just how hurtful this would feel. So next, I'm going to be showing a video. I want to highlight that this video, but we talked a little bit earlier on why we think online bullying or cyberbullying can be different from other forms of bullying. So keep that in mind while we watch this clip. Before I do want to mention that there are some swear words. They are bleeped out, but please know about the content warning for graphic language. So let's go ahead and watch it. Again, I hope that it's not too laggy, but basically just think of the effects of cyberbullying and if it was in real life.
It's not like a movie.
Excuse me. Just end your miserable existence.
She's so stupid. You're so stupid. You know it though, right? You know you're stupid. You are the weirdest kid in school. Why do you always mess with school? You need to go back to the hellholes you're from. Can you believe this? And terrorist. What did you say? You heard what I said. Fat bitches like you should get over themselves. Go on a diet. I'm just can you please I'm trying. You should go. I think you should go. She upset me too. I think you should go. Everyone hates you. You should hate yourself too. What are you doing? Why are you talking to her like that? Because she deserves it. She doesn't. Like, walk away right now.
Homosexuality is a disease. We're saving humanity by killing itself.
Get out of here right now.
Yeah.
Take walk.
This woman is dangerous. All Muslims are terrorists.
Yeah. I'm also terrorist, just so you know.
That's really mean. Are you okay? Yeah.
So I apologize if it was very laggy and hard to watch, but essentially what was happening was these were paid actors doing the bullying, and the people being bullied were also actors as well. And essentially what they were doing was they were repeating everything that was actually said by real people, but online. And they were doing it in a public space, you know, in person. And as you can see, the people who stepped in were checking in. Those were real people that were being the active bystanders. But essentially what was happening was it was just really shocking to hear those words in real life. But it's really normal, right, to see them, or rather, it shouldn't be normal, but it does feel more normal to see them online. And so the idea is, if this behavior is unacceptable in real life, why is it normal online? So I invite you all to kind of like reflect on that a little bit. I think whenever I do this training live, people tend to say things like, it's because there's a screen in between. You're anonymous too, right? So you can just anonymously say mean things. You don't see the other person too, right? You don't see the effect that you have on other people. And so when we see things like this online, just remember that there's another person on the other side. And even though we're not seeing how they're reacting, the words are the same. And we can see that how hurtful those words can be, right? So that's why we need to talk more about cyberbullying, because we're kind of normalizing the behavior. But the more that we talk about it, the more that we can understand the real effects that it can have on someone. So again, now we're going to be talking a little bit about some statistics here. 1 in 5 high school students actually experience bullying, and 1 in 7 high school students experience cyberbullying. And I want you all to know, whenever I share statistics in my trainings, these are just reported numbers. So this is just what we know. So I have a feeling, but I'll pose the question, and I know that since there's kind of a delay, I typically ask this question: do you think there are people who are bullied and don't tell anyone? And I ask people to like raise their hand, and almost everyone raises their hand, right? I think so too. I think even though these numbers are really, really high and really staggering, I have a feeling it's even more frequent than we realize. So it's a real problem that's affecting people. That being said, 70% of students and school staff have actually seen bullying. So it definitely is happening a lot. And a lot of people are actually seeing it happen. And if people are seeing it happen, then that means a lot of people can stop it, right? That's just basically an opportunity that we can help stop bullying, right? So that means that you can step in, I can step in, anyone can step in and stop this. So with that in mind, we're going to show another video, and it's similar to the first video. There is some graphic language that is beeped out, but we're going to just watch it real quick. Hope that you all can it's not too laggy. The first one's always more laggy, but hopefully it won't be too bad.
Scrawny, chubby, short,
queer.
Getting caught up in bullying, it's so easy because you're just glad that you're not being bullied.
It's been hard for me to stand up for other people because I feel like I'm already a target.
It's just easier to do nothing.
Fine. Dude, ow, stop. Ow. Ow. Do you have any friends? Yes, I heard you. What do you even doing here? Oh, it's too easy.
Stop.
Come on.
I get it. I
You
get
are a
it.
little bit more. Oh.
You think you're still?
One more Virginia meal.
Dude, stop. You're fine. Oh.
I just opened it up and it's all smashed. Did you order bullied or unbullied?
Bullied or unbullied?
Yeah.
Do you have a manager that I can speak to? Because that doesn't make any sense. Hi, how's it going? I was given this. Did you bully this burger?
Well, yeah. This is a defenseless Whopper Jr. It can't defend itself.
I don't mean anything by it.
It's just for
It's
laughs.
just for laughs.
Just give me my burger, man.
Hold on.
Yeah.
What are you? Is there something wrong with you?
Because that's clearly what happened.
Can't be serious. Had you seen me bullying this burger, would you have stood up and said something?
Yeah.
It's good to know.
What's your name?
He's not having fun. So therefore, I think you guys should just leave him alone.
Later. This feels better to me.
You've never been like messed with before.
Oh my god. Like the ideal world is where it's not okay.
Yeah.
To feel defenseless, that's the one of the worst things in the world.
Chelsea, okay, because it isn't.
Something I'll never forget is my friend standing up for me.
I've been that kid, so
So again, I think that my internet's just not great tonight, so I apologize. But essentially what was happening was they put actors in the Burger King of young kids. The bullies were actors and the person being bullied was an actor as well. And they were showing like a bullying scene, but also at the same time, they were bullying the Whopper Jr. as well. And they were trying to see if people would react to the Whopper Jr. being smashed and bullied versus reacting to the actual bullying that was happening in the store. And they found that like 95% of people that they saw were reacting to the bullying of the Whopper Jr. They did go up and complain about their sandwich. 12% of customers actually became an active bystander and stood up for the people that were actually being bullied. Again, it was actors. But what's interesting about this is I usually ask people, you know, what do you all think of that video? You know, what are some barriers? Why do you think people didn't stand up for the kids, right? And some people say, you know, maybe they were worried that they would get bullied. So that's a barrier, right? Some people talk about the reason why people didn't stood up for the burger being bullied instead of the other people being bullied was because maybe they felt like it wasn't their problem. The burger affected them personally, and so they did something about it. But the situation didn't affect them. And yeah, like Anthony mentioned, they don't care, right? That's an example too. I think a lot of people, sometimes there's this idea of like, oh, I didn't know that there was bullying happening. But I know it's hard to see in the video. But in the video, you could see everyone was noticing it and uncomfortable. They wanted to do something. You could tell that they knew that what was happening was wrong. They just had some personal barrier for whatever reason why they didn't step in. That being said, there were still 12% of people who stepped in, right? Which is awesome. So what can we do? What can we do to get over these barriers of bullying, right? When we see it. So when we see the bullying scenario, I want to just break it down a little bit. Why do people not, come in and intervene? So first off, we do have the victim or their target. So that, of course, is the person being bullied. And then we also have the bully. That's the person doing the cyberbullying, doing the name calling, doing the physical bullying, right? And then we have a few other players here. We have two different kinds of bystanders. And bystanders are essentially people who see something happening. They witness something. So we have the passive bystander. So this is the person that sees the situation happening and chooses not to step in. So we saw that in the last video, a lot of people were seemingly rather alarmed at what was happening, and yet they sort of looked away or ignored it, right? Maybe they're not sure how to help. Maybe they don't know, think it involves them, or they think they should stay out of it. Maybe they're worried of looking silly or misinterpreting the situation. Passive bystanders can also unfortunately join in on the bullying, and maybe they're afraid of being the target as well, so they join in. So those kinds of things. But then we have our awesome active bystanders, right? This is the person that sees that situation, interprets it as bullying, and does something to stop it. In either of those videos, we did see some active bystanders, right? There was a man in a plaid shirt that simply just went up and said, I don't think he's enjoying what's happening, right? There was also that person in the leather jacket who just simply went up to the bully and shook their hand and said, hi, my name is, so-and-so, what's your name? I think what you're doing is not okay. So just confronting the bully too. Maybe just saying what's happening is not okay, calling the bullying out, checking in on the victim, that can really make a world of a difference, right? So that being said, I have this slide here, and it's essentially when I'm in person, I ask people to go through each number and, is this, what kind of, within the bullying scenario, who's who, right? So we're just going to go through each one together here. So number one, you see two people in the center here. And essentially those are the victims, right? They're the ones who are being bullied. Maybe they seem to be upset, right? And then number two, of course, is the bully. So maybe they are, saying something hurtful or making fun of the victims. And then number three, we have as a passive bystander. And again, these can be also considered a bully. It's just up to you. But the reason why we bring this person up is, they're essentially joining in on the bullying, right? So that's why we bring that up. And then number four is another example of what a passive bystander could do. So they could just approve of what's going on, right? Number five, I get some mixed answers, but we do have it here as a passive bystander. They seem to be ignoring the situation, but we can also look at it a little differently because they're on their phone, if you can see. So they could actually be something called documenting. So they could be documenting the bullying too. Maybe they're videoing it and putting it on social media. Maybe they're writing a post about it, maybe taking pictures, those kinds of things, which is another thing a passive bystander can do. I've also had people say that this is actually an active bystander where they're calling for help, which is completely valid too. So it's just how you interpret the situation. And then number six, I always like to point out as another passive bystander, but I like to point out that he seems kind of upset and uncomfortable, right? It looks like this person doesn't seem to be joining in. They don't seem to be enjoying what's happening, but maybe they have some barriers, right? Maybe they're afraid that what's going to happen to them if they do intervene. Maybe they've been bullied in the past and they don't want to be retaliated against, those kinds of things. So that's another passive bystander. And then number 7, I point out, is another passive bystander. And essentially it looks like they just don't know what to do, right? And essentially what this training is all about is, what can we do to change that? What are some of the things that we can do? Because it doesn't matter your personality, what you're comfortable with. We can all be active bystanders. We have different tools and different techniques that we can use to help stop bullying, right? And then the last one is, of course, our active bystander. You can see he's kind of like got his hand up and saying like, no, stop what you're doing, right? So essentially, he is like basically maybe saying, you know, telling the bully what he's doing is wrong, or maybe he's checking in with the victims as well and seeing if they're doing okay, that kind of thing. So moving on, this is always a question that I like to ask people when we're doing it live, which is, why do people bully others? Live being in person. So feel free to type in the comment section while I go through it if you can think of other ones on why people bully others. So for example, this is not a complete list, right? So feeling powerless in their own lives. When I first shared the definition of bullying, the word power came up, right? That perceived or actual power imbalance. And in all of my trainings on preventing violence, the main factor that connects them all is someone wanting to exert power over someone else. So perhaps someone bullies to feel as though they are gaining power, since in their lives they feel powerless, right? So another example, another reason is maybe someone is bullying them. So that's another example of wanting to gain power, right? Another example could be jealousy or frustration. I see someone also posted trying to be the big one, right? Trying to gain that power, exactly. Another example is lack of understanding of empathy. So like, for example, an example of empathy, I should say, a definition is simply being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, being able to understand how they're feeling, right? If they don't understand that person's feelings, or maybe they are ignoring that person's feelings, it's easier to bully someone, right? So that could be a reason. Perhaps they're also looking for attention, right? I think a lot of times they just want someone to see them, for example. Also mimicking behaviors of family. Maybe they see their parents or siblings doing bully-like behaviors and decide that that should be how they're acting too. Maybe that they think that that's a normal thing to do, that kind of thing. One that's really important to highlight is bullying oftentimes gets rewarded. So kind of reflect on that a little bit, right? Normally I would ask, you know, how do you think that bullying gets rewarded? So for example, maybe the bully feels rewarded by the passive bystanders laughing, right? Maybe they like getting that attention. Anything else that you can think of, feel free to type in the chat. But also, like you mentioned earlier, like trying to be the big one, maybe feeling that strength or that perceived power feels like a reward too. And then lastly, again, not a complete list, but they can't regulate their emotions. That could be another reason why people bully each other. Maybe they have a hard time controlling their anger and lashing out. It could definitely be, you know, a reason why someone could bully, right? So again, not a complete list, but it's important that we understand why people do bully others. So with that being said, we've gone over what bullying is, what it can look like, why people choose to bully. So let's start by talking about how each and every one of us can stand up and speak out against bullying, right? And I do really mean each and every one of us, because all of us have the power and strength to become active bystanders and be that hero for someone, right? So let's say you saw someone being bullied in real life or online. Try to think of, your own barriers, and then think of what you would do to overcome those and be an active bystander. What would you do, right? So in one of our other trainings, Be the Hero, which is all about how to be an active bystander, we talk about intervention techniques, which I'll delve into a little here briefly. Intervention techniques are basically techniques that people use to intervene and stop a situation from happening, right? So we have the 3 Ds. We have direct, distract, and delegate. So we're going to go over each one. So direct is confronting the bully, right? Telling them that what they're doing is wrong. Like Anthony said, saying stop. That is a great intervention technique for direct, right? Or going up to the victim and asking if they're all right, those kinds of things. So that's absolutely one way we can be an active bystander. But another one is distract. And we could be really creative with distracting. So distracting is simply just trying to diffuse the situation. So we can maybe tell the bully or victim that someone is looking for them. Maybe you can say that the principal is coming, or spill your water bottle on you, on the person, whatever you're most comfortable with, those kinds of things. So with distract, is just simply just diffusing the situation and trying to make it just stop through distraction. And then the last one I want to talk about is delegate. So we can ask for someone to help us, right? This could be a parent, this could be a teacher, a friend, a janitor, even the school police officer if you have one, a guidance counselor, just anyone that you feel safe reaching out to help with this situation. There's more power in numbers too. And a lot of times a barrier could be you're afraid of being retaliated against. That's why delegation is an awesome one. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that we can step up and intervene. There isn't just one way to help. If you're more shy, maybe delegating is a better strategy for you. Maybe distracting is more your thing. Whatever it is, you are still stepping up and helping others, which is can make a world of a difference, because bullying has some real effects on someone. So we're going to talk about those effects now. So effects on the victim, right? So how does bullying affect the victim? So essentially depression and anxiety. It could include decreased academic performance, right? Especially if you're being bullied at school, I think that can really have a toll on you. You might be afraid to go to school, for example, and you're just seeing that those grades plummet, right? There could be feelings of worthlessness or loneliness, especially if there's social bullying going on, especially if there's teasing going on, right? It can really affect your self-esteem. Also, substance abuse. Victims of any kind of violence, but also bullying, sometimes can turn to substance abuse just to feel better, right? Also changes in sleeping and eating patterns too. So maybe that person isn't sleeping at all because they're just nervous all the time, or they're just so tired from being bullied all the time that they sleep all day. Maybe they're eating a lot to cope, or maybe they just are too nervous to eat at all. Those kinds of things. Maybe they have a loss of interest in activities. Maybe this friend that you used to see come to soccer practice every week just isn't going anymore. Maybe you're seeing that your friend that used to play Among Us with you every night just isn't playing Among Us anymore. Those kinds of things, they're just losing interest in activities. Also mental health issues. That could include, depression and anxiety, of course, but it could also include other mental health issues. And that can also include suicidal thoughts too, especially kind of going in with that worthlessness and loneliness feeling, right? And what I like to mention here is that these are just invitations to kind of check in, and opportunities to check in with your loved ones on how they're feeling. Maybe you're seeing a friend that, again, you used to play games with every Saturday or whatever, and all of a sudden they're just not playing games anymore. Or you used to see them online for classes, every class, and then all of a sudden you're seeing that they're just not showing up to class anymore. And so another way we can be active bystanders is to just check in with those people when we see those severe changes, and check in with them and say, hey, I noticed that you haven't been coming to class. Is everything okay? And this isn't to say that they are being bullied, but there could be something going on there. And it's just an invitation to check in with your loved ones and see how you can help support them, right? So those are effects on the victim. But a lot of times we don't actually think of the effects that bullying can have actually on the bully, right? So some effects that bullying can have is actually bullies who can lead to substance abuse. It can also lead to mental health issues in general. It's pretty similar, actually. And then it could, again, decrease in academic performance. If they're spending all their time bullying and not studying, that makes sense. Maybe they're being suspended from school for being caught for bullying, right? It makes sense that their academic performance would go down. There's also some correlation with abusive and future relationships too. Again, it's that power and control, right? They're related. So it makes sense. Then they're also more likely to be expelled or just to drop out from school too, which we talked a little bit about. And then they're more likely to engage in violent and risky behaviors. So not only does bullying affect the person being bullied, of course, but also it has lasting effects on the bully themselves. With that being said, I do have like one more video here. I am going to show it, even though usually, again, there's been pretty laggy. But speaking of some of the really important effects and lasting effects that bullying can have on someone, it's basically just saying that, like we mentioned before, one of the effects that bullying can have on a victim is suicide. So I do want to once again kind of have a content warning here that this does talk about suicide. So please take care of yourself while we go through this. But I do just want to highlight kind of the real lasting effects.
In Florida, 2 girls face felony charges this morning. They're accused of bullying a classmate to the point that she killed herself. Their parents could also face charges. Anna Warner is in Winter Haven, Florida. Anna, good morning.
Good morning, Nora, and good morning, Charlie. Investigators say bullying drove Sedgwick to take her own life. They believe as many as 15 girls were involved in a relentless campaign of harassment. Police say they've arrested these 2 girls now because of what one of them posted online over the weekend.
The sheriff released photos of the 2 girls, one 14 years old and the second just 12. Both are charged with aggravated stalking, a 3rd-degree felony.
In your eyes, what makes these 2 girls' acts criminal?
Because they terrorized her. They did things like, you should die. You should drink bleach and die. You see a pattern of harassment, a pattern of intimidation. And that's what they did. They intimidated this girl. They harassed her. She had no peace.
There was a trigger here for you.
Sheriff Judd says investigators were also troubled by something the older girl posted on social media on Saturday.
She made a comment in reference to, yeah, I bullied Rebecca, and yeah, she's dead, but I don't give a blank. I met with the detectives and their supervisors yesterday afternoon and said, okay, she needs to go to jail. We need to arrest her.
Police said the girl's parents refused to cooperate. Both girls were arrested Monday at their homes. Trisha Norman is Rebecca Sedgwick's mother.
Her birthday Saturday, and I think this is a huge birthday present for her.
Last December, Sedgwick cut her wrists. Then last month, she climbed an abandoned tower in a concrete plant and jumped to her death. Court alleged the older girl began harassing Sedgwick after she started dating Sedgwick's former boyfriend. The affidavits filed by a police investigator also indicate the younger girl and Sedgwick were once close friends, but that the 14-year-old may have convinced the younger girl to turn on Sedgwick, even getting her to beat up her former best friend.
It just makes me question, where did they learn it from? I mean, you
Themselves right now. How can this happen?
It shouldn't happen. And it only can happen when parents don't parent their children. You need to know what they're talking about online. You need to know who their friends are. You need to know if they're bullying people at school.
And last night we spoke with the parents of the 12-year-old girl arrested in this case. Terrible about what happened, that his daughter will be dealing with the consequences. Those parents say they are cooperating with the police. Now, the father believes that his daughter was led down the wrong path by the older girl, the 14-year-old. He says that his daughter is a straight A student and she's never been in trouble before.
So I get there, but that video was a lot, and it was also, though, really important because it shows us the very real dangers of bullying, right? A lot of people, we saw the effects, and what I really want to highlight here, that life plus bullying is greater than suicide, right? So bullying feels awful. And we saw the effects that it can have on resources out there and support. There's loved ones that are ready to help. And you are definitely not alone. And if there's anything I want you all to take away from this evening, is that people are here to support you, including people like the Victim Service Center. So with that, that is the end of the training. I do want to let you all know that you all have options. You have so many options, including also some organizations too. So these are just some organizations that I want to share with you all. Of course, we do have the Victim Service Center, which is what, you can call our 24-hour helpline there. But also there's a crisis helpline and a text line too. And then there's a national suicide prevention hotline too that you can call at any point. These are just really good numbers to have. And then also, if people are feeling more comfortable, they're part of the LGBTQ plus community and they're feeling more comfortable reaching out to someone in that community, they can reach out to the Trevor Project, which is a wonderful resource. You can actually, just wanted to highlight again that there's people out there for you. There's a lot of resources too. But then thank you again for this great discussion. I appreciate everyone messaging. And I do want to, again, sorry about the lag. It's just internet issues, right? Everyone's on the internet. But I hope that you found this all useful. You can always reach out to the Victim Service Center. You can reach out to me as well if you have any questions. Thank you again. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Emily, so much for joining us tonight, and thank you everyone for watching. If you want to take down the information on your screen, we also have the clickable links in the comments. I'm going to put the Victim Service Center website again in the comments there one more time. There we go. And okay, so that should be in the comments again. And if you want to take a screenshot or click on those links, you can do so now. Thank you everyone for spending your evening with us. And we appreciate you spending that time with us. And we appreciate you, Emily, for sharing all this valuable information with us. We hope that everyone has learned something tonight. I know I have, and I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
And that concludes our event. So if you want to, again, take a screenshot or rewatch on YouTube or Facebook, you can do so. You can find the information again. Thank you. Everyone stay healthy and safe. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to be the first to find out when we have new fun and informative videos for you. Orange County Library System is your place to learn, grow, connect.